The U.S. Navy reports the 7 sailors missing from an early morning ship collision have been found dead.
7 U.S. Army soldiers were shot and wounded in another insider attack.
After undergoing another surgery, Congressman Steve Scalise is no longer in critical condition, but is now listed in serious condition.
He was unhinged in a political sense. I think he was out at that ballpark for the exact reason that he wanted to kill as many Republicans as he could.
The president is spending the weekend in Camp David. It is the very first visit of his presidency.
The Republican establishment not fighting for their commander-in-chief. Why is this going on in Washington?
Because they hate Trump.
He's going to go out and surprise his kids for Father's Day. What do you want to say to Dad for Father's Day?
You miss him so much.
Aww.
Green room, he said he forgot it was Father's Day till right now.
Oh, come on, Ryan.
I'm just saying, you might be out there. You're not alone if you forgot that it's Friday.
But is he a father? Because that might make it okay.
But he has a father.
Yep, he does
So
have a
everyone's
father.
got a father that you have to thank today. So remember to thank your father. Find a special way to do it. We're going to be talking about Father's Day.
We're going to be celebrating all day. Let us know the best advice that your father gave to you. And send it to us so we can read them on the show, friends@foxnews.com, because we all need that advice, too.
Absolutely.
Sometimes fathers have the best advice.
Oh, I would say all the time. I mean, it's amazing what my dad has done for me to get me to this stage in life, and I'm sure the same is for you guys. And your dad sort of helps the country as well, you know, as part of his advice, but because he's a very, very
finding
smart
that balance,
man.
you know, all dads, I'm sure, work so hard to find the balance of being a good dad. So we want to hear from you.
Send us a photo with your dad.
Yes.
Since this is television and a visual medium, we want a photo.
And they don't have to be good photos. They can be
funny
corny,
photos, bad photos.
funny.
And we're going to be showing photos of our dads coming up. And
Absolutely. We do start, though, with the Fox News alert and the U.S. Navy calling off the search for 7 missing sailors.
U.S. officials telling Fox News their bodies have been found inside the damaged destroyer.
Our own Ellison Barber is live in Washington, D.C. with the very latest details. Good morning, Ellison.
Good morning. It is a difficult day for the Navy, to say the least. The search for 7 missing sailors is over. The Navy says they've recovered several bodies inside the flooded compartments of the USS Fitzgerald. A Philippine-flagged merchant ship collided with the guided missile destroyer about 56 nautical miles off the coast of Japan, hitting and damaging the right or starboard side of the destroyer. This happened Friday evening. For us, it was June 17th, 2:30 a.m. local time.
We do have watch teams that are awake throughout the night, but a significant part of the crew was sleeping. 2 compartments that house 116 of the crew are in those compartments, and it was a significant impact to the side of the ship.
The crash injured at least 5 sailors, including the ship's commander. As you heard from the Vice Admiral there, 2 areas that flooded were berthing spaces. That's where sailors typically sleep. A U.S. official tells Fox News all 7 missing sailors were found in the flooded berthing compartments. President Trump tweeted his condolences, writing, quote, "Thoughts and prayers with the sailors of USS Fitzgerald and their families. Thank you to our Japanese allies for their assistance." The Japanese Coast Guard actually led the search for the missing sailors. Back to you.
Thanks, Ellison.
Thank you, Ellison.
Such a tough story. We're thinking about those families right now for sure.
Oh,
names to be identified, and it's a tough process. So, well, more politics, of course. And this weekend, while it is Father's Day, President Trump is heading to Camp David for the first time, the traditional presidential retreat, where he will be there with his family enjoying Father's Day. And a little bit of a quiet weekend after a very busy week, but pressure growing right now for the president to do something about the special counsel, Robert Mueller or Rob Rosenstein. Should they recuse themselves? Are they conflicted? A lot of different viewpoints coming from his supporters, one of which is Newt Gingrich, the former Speaker of the House, and he's got a particular opinion about the types of people Bob Mueller is putting around him and what it may mean about this investigation. Take a listen.
One of the people they've hired, that Mueller's hired, actually worked for the Clinton Foundation fighting Freedom of Information Act requests. Now think about that. If you want a guarantee of non-transparency, why don't you have the person who is defending the Clinton Foundation against requests for transparency?
That's a problem. That right there is a problem.
I mean, you're a lawyer. You understand this stuff.
Look, I believe all lawyers they take an oath. You know, they really need to follow the best thing that they can do for their client, and they need to be ethical and all that good stuff. But this just smells bad. You don't need to be a lawyer for this. This just smells bad. You know, it's kind of like the fox in the henhouse type
Right,
deal.
and that's why there have been a lot of rumors about President Trump firing Mueller, right? But you think about the optics of that, I think they would be terrible. I don't think he can outright right. Very challenging, and it's not something that he needs right now on his plate, because we already know what the narrative of that is going to be. So the New York Post actually has an interesting piece out, giving him sort of a different idea, a way to sort of take the upper hand on this whole thing. They suggest firing the people around him, like Jeff Sessions, Rod Rosenstein, putting people in that can defend you, that can be sort of the people that can...
It's an op-ed in the New York Post from Michael Goodwin, and he does make a unique argument, whether you agree with it or not. He says President Trump can begin by firing two other people, Attorney General Jeff Sessions and his deputy Rod Rosenstein. Trump is not being served well by either man, and with his presidency possibly hanging in the balance of Mueller's probe, he must regain control of the Justice Department. Replacing the top two officials is the first step. Now, that's a big charge, because Jeff Sessions has been a Trump loyalist from the beginning. You know he's had the president's back from the beginning. You know he's doing the best he can. There's just criticism of, well, should he have recused himself in the first place? This whole investigation's become a bit of a mess. Can you really get rid of Mueller because of the optics, as you said? Even if he is conflicted, he is the former FBI director. Rosenstein, should he recuse himself? What if he doesn't? And but what the President Trump is doing this weekend, you might say, is what his critics have been telling him to do. Step back, let your surrogates go onto the Sunday shows. Jay Sekulow and other lawyers are going to go on the offense aggressively on his behalf. He hasn't been tweeting about it. So they may be gathering for a strategy this coming week of how they want to get their arms around an investigation that, as you said, doesn't look good when you're hiring this many high-powered lawyers, many of which have left-wing Democratic ties to the Clinton Foundation. And what are they looking for? What's the scope of this investigation? How far could it go? It really does feel like a witch hunt.
Yeah, it does, and it has gotten so complicated, this whole investigation. It seems like no matter what anyone does, it's going to be talked negatively about in the media. I think you have a lot of Trump loyalists who would be really upset if someone like Jeff Sessions were let go, because, as you said, he was with them from the very early days of the campaign. One of the things we know about President Trump is he's very, very loyal. So
if problems are leaks, then you need people that you know aren't leakers, that do support you. And Jeff Sessions may not have been perfect, but the guy's been on point.
So what is the answer?
Supporters, right? Well, speaking of supporters, you need supporters in this kind of a situation, because we've seen the left is very, very vocal throughout this entire process. Trump does need supporters, and Judge Jeanine really sort of went off on the Republican Party, quite frankly, and here's what she had to say.
You want to talk Russia? Let's talk about Russia. Let's talk about the sale of 20% of our uranium to Russia and Hillary Clinton signing off on the deal. The Clinton Foundation, that slush fund for Hillary, receiving $140 million, and Bill Clinton getting more than twice or triple his normal speech fee. You're empowered, damn it. Do something. Pass something. Cut this kumbaya crap. Put on your big boy pants and act like you're in power. Act like you give a damn. And more importantly, convince us that you're not in on the effort to take down the President of the United States.
Well, if you weren't doing
there you go. Hello.
I have never seen Judge Jeanine so passionate. Maybe President Trump should hire her to be one of his defenders, because that is what he has needed. He's needed people that he, as you said, that he surrounds himself with that can bat for him, that can support him, that can really go against the media and the left wing that continue to fight against the president.
Don't say on the one hand and on the other. I mean, you see Speaker Gingrich is such a great advocate for that, but look at Capitol Hill. Who else is out there? There are some great junior Congressman Duncan Hunter will be on the program later on today. He's been full-throated in support of the president. But where's Paul Ryan? How about Mitch McConnell? I want a missing poster for Mitch McConnell. Where is he? What does he do?
And look how
what has he done to defend the president? How are we fighting back against leftists like Elizabeth Warren, who are saying we're going to get nastier, as we're going to find out later in the program as well? It's time to fight.
Look how unified the left is. I mean, the left guy has their ducks in a row. They can organize. They can mobilize a nation. President Trump did that, but the Republicans, at least many of them, seem fractured. They don't seem to be backing up the president. And again, I keep going back. I know this was a name of a movie. I always go back to Team America. All this divisiveness, all this confusion, as you use the word, This isn't helping us. And
Team America? No, it's Team GOP if you're a GOPer.
All right.
The left got rid of Team America a long time ago. They're coming after President Trump no matter what. If it was Team America, they'd be at the table talking about
No, but I think you make a good point. And yes, the resistance movement isn't helping anybody. But if you've looked back at our country's history, whenever we have something huge pass, whenever there are those big moments, it is both sides of the aisle coming together. Mainly one side, but you need
Reagan,
folks from the other. And President Trump ran. President Trump ran on that, though. He said, I can be different when I come in. I can actually bring people together. That's what I did as a businessman. And I do believe he can do that, but he also needs help from folks on Capitol Hill, and mainly from his own party. We're not seeing that yet.
So did Barack Obama, and then he rammed a health care bill down our throat with only Democratic votes. So this whole fallacy that both sides are working together, I want to believe it. I do. Listen, who wants this type of... But the reality is either your team wins or your team loses. And right now, as you said, Todd, the Democratic Party has closed ranks in their resistance. There's no cracks in their wall. Yet for Republicans, you've got only a few full-throated supporters, and now's the time to have the back of your president if you believe in his agenda, which ultimately, if you believe in his agenda, you think it's the best thing for America.
Woo, we are wired this morning.
We are ready to go.
We are ready to go. I hope you're joining us. I do, though, want to get to some other headlines we're following closely, starting with a Fox News alert. More than 24 people are injured, some critically, after a deck collapses at a Montana lodge, with the incident happening at Glacier Camp. During a memorial service, about 50 people were there. About a dozen were sent to the hospital. A witness saying that the deck felt, quote, spongy on one side just before collapsing. Police are now investigating. We'll keep a close eye on that. And some good news to report this morning. Doctors say Congressman Steve Scalise's condition has been upgraded from critical to serious. That is some good news. And he does continue to improve. The House Majority Whip undergoing his third surgery at a Washington, D.C. hospital after being shot earlier in the week. Well, the hospital says Scalise is responding more and is speaking with his loved ones. 3 other people were shot when James Hodgkinson opened fire at a GOP baseball practice in Alexandria early on Wednesday morning last week. Also, prosecutors are vowing to retry Bill Cosby after a judge declares a mistrial. A Pennsylvania judge failing to reach a verdict in his sexual assault case after 6 days of deliberations. Cosby remains free on a $1 million bail. He's still facing 3 counts of felony sexual assault. And golfer Justin Thomas is heading into the final round of the U.S. Open today, fresh off a record-setting 3rd round. Watch.
He's aiming his putt here on 5. This is Justin Thomas.
Get rid of that.
Wow, look at that. Unreal. Well, Thomas finishing the day with a 9-under par 63. Despite the historic performance, he is not in first, believe it or not. Thomas heads into today's final round, trailing Brian Harman by 1 shot. The action all begins at 11 a.m. Eastern on Fox. Whew, I love it.
That's awesome. What a putt.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Well,
I bet you can.
No, I definitely can't. We mentioned it earlier. Elizabeth Warren is out with a brand new slam against President Trump.
Women's rights are not up for grabs. Donald, you ain't seen nasty yet.
Donald, you ain't seen nasty yet. Well, that was just the beginning. We'll bring it to you.
Plus, after a string of violent protests and last Wednesday's political assassination attempt, even extremist experts are worried that the radical left is a danger to the American public. Yeah, you think? Ryan Morrow with the stunning new report. He's coming up next.
Good morning.
Good morning.
After last week's assassination attempt of Republicans at a baseball practice in Virginia, why is the left just now being called out for extremist positions?
Vice News ran with this headline, quote, extremism experts are starting is a key word there, to worry about the left. Ryan Morrow is a security analyst with the Clarion Project. He joins us now. Ryan, a little late?
Yes, more than a little late, because anyone that studies this type of extremism and terrorism knows that whichever political party or political philosophy does not control the White House, the extremism rises in that level. But even going back to under the Obama administration, their Department of Homeland Security was warning about an increasing threat from left-wing extremists.
Wait, why did we hear about that? Because we heard a lot about right-wing extremists at that moment, right? Fear of that, but nothing about this.
Well, there was that controversial report that came out of the Obama Department of Homeland Homeland Security that said right-wing extremists, you need to worry about them. Around the same time, this report came out, and it reads, left-wing extremists likely to increase use of cyber attacks over the coming decade. And it warns about extremists from the left wing acting as lone wolves. And this report was just focusing on the cyber element of the threat. You would assume that the overall threat was increasing, but the reason you didn't hear about it was because there was this mantra, this talking point, saying that right-wing terrorists were a bigger threat than Islamic terrorists throughout the Obama administration. It was made for political purposes.
Let's take a step back. What does the Vice News report say?
Well, first of all, Vice News is a left-leaning outlet, and even they are saying, and quoting experts as saying, look, we've got a problem here with extremists from the left becoming increasingly violent. Some might say it's not terrorism, but still, if you're rioting and you're getting into fights at protests, that shows a violent current that we need to be very concerned about. And I've got to tell you, when I look at the political discourse in the country, the hatred that it triggers this type of violence, it's one of the things that disturbs me the most.
Here we go on the screen right now.
You see things like this. I mean, a lot of this has been also, whether they're pro-Trump supporters or conservatives or anti-Sharia law protests, those protests are peaceful. It's the counter-protest of the anti-fascists or left, whatever they want to call themselves, that bring the violence into the mix. Is that part of what Vice News is talking about here?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a pretty sharp contrast there when you see how the different political philosophies deal with their grievances. You have peaceful protesters, and you may not like some of the signs, but then you have people that are trying to burn and attack people with the signs. But we have to take this very seriously, because even the founding fathers, right from the beginning, warned about the impact of political extremism, essentially. The spirit of party, they called it. George Washington said it was the greatest enemy of the American people. And Thomas Jefferson said similar things. And he said that it was actually a duty of the public to try to contain that spirit of party that divides us. And I look at the news headlines, and I feel like their warnings have not been listened to.
15 seconds left. Pete brought this up yesterday, saying this isn't a new phenomenon that just happened in the last week. The left has espoused violence for decades.
Sure, and if you look at the history of terrorism, you would see a huge amount of left-wing terrorism going on before 9/11, particularly during the Cold War era. So this is something that deserves our attention just based on historical patterns, and that's not to dismiss what's sometimes called right-wing terrorism, even though I don't like that type of terminology, but we have to pay attention to extremism on both sides.
And it's even more frustrating when they deny the Islamist threat at the same time. So,
yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your expertise. All right, coming up, tired of the fake news? I know I am. Well, the liberal media won't stop talking about Russia, Russia, Russia. But up next, 3 reporters break down 3 real stories you need to know today.
Plus, it is a Father's Day surprise these kids never saw coming.
You're all like, oh, I want to know this. You want your father.
Back, we have some quick headlines for you and a Fox News alert. Devastating forest fires in Portugal have claimed the lives of at least 43 people as the death toll continues to climb. About 600 firefighters battling the enormous blaze that is sweeping through forests and neighborhoods just 100 miles away from the capital city of Lisbon. Officials say the fire started from a lightning strike. And the Taliban, unfortunately, praising an attack on American soldiers yesterday. An Afghan army soldier opening fire on a military base in northern Afghanistan, wounding 7 brave American soldiers. The Americans firing back, killing the attacker and wounding 1 other Afghan soldier. And finally, with the Democrats' Russian collusion narrative, well, or that's our final story. We're going to toss it over to Abby. Abby, over to you.
Pete, thank you so much. As you said, with the Democrats' Russia collusion narrative falling apart, many liberal journalists have found themselves in a tailspin, obsessed with reporting on speculation instead of bringing you the real news. Here to tell us which stories deserve more attention is our panel of journalists, investigative reporter of Circa News, Sarah Carter, Olympic media managing editor Katie Freites, and reporter for The Federalist, Bree Payton. Good morning, ladies. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm excited for this. We're going to do something a little bit differently. The mainstream media is reporting on a lot of news. Much of it is not really news. You 3 have been focused on stories that actually matter and is actually real news. So, Sarah, tell us what you've been working on.
Afghanistan. I mean, I think the focus needs to shift back to South Asia. We haven't seen a lot of news out of there, and unfortunately, the news, Abby, that we have seen is pretty devastating. You know, with the green on blue attacks increasing, I was actually speaking with the Taliban spokesman, Zabiullah Mujahid, this past week, and they're relentless. They say they will continue attacks on U.S. troops, U.S. contractors, and foreigners in the region, and they're not planning on backing down. And we know that the area has become a safe haven as well for ISIS. crisis, and that's really concerning.
Sarah, why isn't there more focus? As you said, this should be what everyone is talking about right now. It impacts all of us.
Absolutely. I mean, this was Obama's war after he got it from Bush. And so now we're seeing that this is going to be President Trump's war. This is not going to end anytime soon. We've seen any significant gains made in Afghanistan, which was years ago, dissipate. They're dismal now. We've seen the Taliban resurge in areas like the north, where we just saw the latest screen on blue attack. And right now we know that General Mattis is saying this is a losing war right now. We need a new strategy. And the strategies that we've tried to do in the past haven't worked. And I think one of the biggest points is, Russia and Iran are very volatile right now in that region.
Right.
I mean, they're making things very difficult for us.
Absolutely. Well, bringing it back here to home, Katie, we know the mainstream media loves to focus on the polling, especially when President Trump is low. But he recently reached 50% in a Rasmussen poll. Actually, this is really the first I've even heard about it. Not many people are talking about it.
No, they aren't. So you're right. On Friday, Rasmussen released a poll showing that for the first time since April, President Trump has hit 50% approval from likely voters. You may, however, have seen a poll being covered from AP showing a 64% disapproval rating. One of those reasons may be, as we said, that this is good news for Trump. It's the first time he's hit it since April after the horrible shooting of Republicans. That bounced up. It's been going up over the past week, but no one's covering this. And you have to wonder why. There wasn't even a debate between those two polls of what's different about them. It's substantive news for Trump. It's good news, and it honestly undercuts the Russia collusion narrative. It shows that voters are tired of hearing about it.
It is so true. At the very least, just compare the polls, right? Bree,
absolutely.
So healthcare, of course, is an important one. When I go around the country to these diners, that is what the American people care so much about right now, and the Republicans are trying to get this bill passed. There's something in it that we haven't really heard much about.
Yeah, well, several Republican senators, including Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, is saying that she is not going to vote on anything that defunds Planned Parenthood, which is problematic for the party, which has promised its voters and its constituents time and time again that it would defund this organization. This is an organization, the nation's largest abortion provider, that aborts over 300,000 children every single year and lies about the services that it provides. So really, I've been told that even Republican senators don't know what's in the bill. They don't know who's drafting it, but inside sources have told me that the Senate version of the health care bill is going to take a hard left turn from the House version, which is already problematic in and of itself because it does not defund Obamacare in full.
You know what? You three women inspire me. As someone that works in the media, it's so nice to see three of you focusing on stories that are so important to every American out there. Thank you so much for being with us. Sarah Carter,
Thank you.
Katie Freitz, and Bree Payton. Have a great Sunday.
You too.
All right, still ahead. Steve Scalise is still in the hospital, but that isn't stopping the mainstream media from attacking him.
Steve Scalise has a history that we've all been forced to sort of ignore on race. He did come to leadership after some controversy over attending a white nationalist event, which he says he didn't know what it was.
Dan Bongino is here to react to that craziness next. And we continue our Father's Day celebration with a look at our president, how President Trump's father, Fred Trump, put him on a path to success. That is coming up next. It's a great story. Happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Some of our staff has sent in some of their photos with their dads. Here is anchor assistant Liz Nafee with her dad Danny, along with brothers Matt and Daniel.
That's right. And college associate Mary Carol Butterfield with her dad Andy at the Masters practice rounds last year. Very cool.
Here's production assistant Hannah Brown with her dad Hal after a tough CrossFit workout. Look how hardcore they are. That's awesome.
I love it. Associate producer Chris Nicoletti with his mom Denise and dad Larry, and at his graduation from Fordham University. Well done.
That's right. And writer Adam Breitbart with his father Mitch and his brother Eric. Looking sharp.
Not forgetting college associate Kevin Fry's brother, who is an officer in the Navy. Thank you, sir, for your service, with his father, Russ.
And Fox's Jackie Ibanez with her dad, Bruce, in Hyde Park, Utah, where I am from. Love that.
And here's Anthony Giordano, father of producer Michael Giordano, going for a ride on his... That's not a tractor.
No.
That's a Mets, couple of Mets.
They could use a tractor at Shea Stadium or City Field. Mets aren't doing too well.
All right, we'll keep sending us in your photos. We love seeing them this morning. Turning now, though, to some other headlines we're following, starting with Vladimir Putin slamming potential new sanctions from the U.S. Senate against Russia. He says the rules would damage relations between the two countries. Well, the Senate voted overwhelmingly earlier this week to impose the sanctions for its alleged interference in the 2016 election. But the bill still needs a vote in the House and the president's signature. And an incredible act of